Hello, this is going to be a process video. It's going to be showing the process of an illustration from start to finish. Now you might recognise some of these sketches from a video I posted last month where I showed myself sketching all these crocodiles, and this was me like figuring out and testing the waters for this illustration, which I'm going to be doing in this video. So these were the first crocodiles I did. They were pretty bad, but you got to get your bad ones out of the way to get to your good ones, and then I started to figure them out more, and I really like this guy and this guy. The reason I'm drawing crocodiles is because this is going to be the main character in this next illustration that I'm going to do, and then I was planning out my thumbnails, and then this one right here, this tiny one right here, is what I'm going to go for. I have done a colour mock, which I'll show you in a second. I'll just get through these sketches first. I wanted the crocodile to be interacting with a girl in some way, so I started just drawing these different scenarios. This is my main character. She's inspired by this character here, which I really like. This is when I was just drawing a bunch of children for my portfolio, and she's my favourite. And then I was drawing a bunch of different positions. I really like this one down here, because what I'd like to do, as well as this main illustration, I want to then do like a page of spot illustrations with the same characters but just in different positions and different scenarios. So here they're doing a bit of dancing. So that's the plan. I did a test piece of a crocodile. This was on my YouTube channel. There's a video where I was testing out some pens, some Ohuhu markers is what they were called, and this is a crocodile I made. So I made a bunch of textures using these pens. As you can see, a whole sheet of textures there, and then I cut him up and I made this crocodile. I'll show you the edited version of the crocodile because I much prefer it. So this was my practice crocodile because I want it to be all made out of collage. For me, it's a little bit too stiff, and I think that's because I made it too small. If once I make it a lot bigger, I'll be able to fit a lot more textures in. That's my hope, because I want it to be absolutely filled with textures, but I was struggling with this because it was so small to get in all the textures that I wanted. Right, back over to this illustration here. If I take you back to this thumbnail, I'll show you a little bit of screen recording of my colour mock. I was just playing around with colours because I knew I wanted there to be a background, but I didn't know what I wanted that background to be, because I wanted it to be really simple because the characters are the focal point, so I didn't want a really detailed background. So then I was just brainstorming and I thought, what if they were under the covers of the bed? So then I was trying to make the background look like the underneath of like a quilted bed sheet, of like a patchwork bed sheet basically, because my idea now is that there's a disco ball under the bed and they're having like a bit of a disco under the sheets, and all the lights from the disco ball are like illuminating the covers from underneath. And then I've got this whole like story idea planned as well, which is a little bit silly and weird, which I don't really want to get into because it's like literally the beginnings of an idea. I'm going to try and carry on working with this little thing that I've been writing, and when I send it to my agent, I'll send the finished image and maybe like just a little bit of my ideas as well for a story which could go alongside this. So that's the colour mock. I'm really happy with it. It's very different for me, very different. It was really hard to figure out what the underneath of a bedsheet would look like. I don't really know if I've achieved it that much, but it looks fun and silly, and that's kind of what I was going for. Quickly explain what I'm doing in these next few clips. I'm just using my laptop as a tracing device. I had the colour mock up on my screen and I was tracing it a bunch of times so that I could play around with it a bit more, and I'll explain that a bit more in a second, but just thought I'd explain it because this looks a little bit weird. Obviously I'm pressing on super light with a pencil, like barely touching the laptop, so don't worry, my screen doesn't get damaged at all when I do this. I'm very careful. This is what I've learned from my composition, moving around a little bit, jiggling things a bit around. Obviously you saw me like roughly tracing and like slightly changing bits of this piece, because originally I wasn't 100% happy with the shape of the crocodile's head, so I tried, well, this is what I had more in mind, like kind of this swooping shape to kind of make the crocodile almost like a complete rectangle. This goes down. After I did this, I realised you was then losing the connection between the girl and the crocodile, because on the original composition their eyes are like almost looking at each other, and I liked how they were both like this, like it went eyes, disco ball, eye. It's like a nice little line, but then on here that line's kind of broken and it's more of like a curve, and I just don't think that it's as good. And I prefer here how it's kind of like a straight line down with the disco ball there, but here it's more like a kind of a weird swoop with the ball. But I'm glad I did these experiments. I didn't really like any of these other ones, so this was the original one. You can't really tell, but I have changed the position of the girl slightly, just really minor tweaks, like I made her body much smaller. Still not 100% perfect, but these are all things I can figure out when I'm doing the final piece. And what else did I change? Oh, I basically decided that I want his arm to be more, because originally his arm's just like a straight line, but I wanted it to be more kind of like bending, like what I think of as the Mr. Burns arms from Simpsons. That's how he holds his arms. And then maybe I'll put a leg up. But just some quick sketches to try out my different ideas, and sometimes you have to try out different things to realise that what you had originally was the kind of the best option. But I'm glad I've tried this out and realised it doesn't work, because now I can move on. Because I feel like if I would have gone ahead with this without trying this, I would have always been thinking, but what if I did the crocodile's head kind of like that instead? So I was also trying out different eyes, but I do just really like these eyes. I think they're really silly, and I want it to kind of look a little bit stupid, like it's got nothing going on in its brain, and I think these eyes make it look a little bit harmless, whereas these eyes are nice, they're kind of friendly eyes, but I kind of want it to look like it's just been magically poofed into this situation and it has like no idea what's going on, because that kind of works with the story that I've come up with. I also tried another composition on this piece of paper, like kind of having the crocodile really leaning over, creating like a nice kind of curve there. I do like this composition, but I think I'm going to try and just make it to fit an A4 book, just showing that I have tried many different options. I've drawn the same thing again and again and again and again, just tweak it a few bits, but yeah, I do think I kind of have the best option here. Here I am making all my textures for the crocodile and, well, everything for this piece. I was doing a lot of green, focusing on the green a lot. I have so many green bits of paper in my collage folder, and I keep just painting more and more and more. It just happens that a lot of the things I make tend to be green. I was using some new techniques, the main one being I got an old card, an old paper chase card, because paper chase doesn't exist anymore, so I thought, let's use this one. And I was using it to create straight lines in the, so I'd paint a texture and then I'd go on top of it with the card and create extra lines and textures. I wanted a lot of square motifs in all these papers, because in a lot of the drawings I was doing in my sketchbook, I was drawing a lot of squares to kind of mimic the scales of a crocodile, although the scales of a crocodile look nothing like squares. But it was just, I don't know, I just think it's a cute way to do it. My main goal was to just make as many unique textures as I just wanted this crocodile to be just filled to the brim with textures, so I just wanted loads to choose from. And then eventually I moved on to doing a few pink textures for the background, but yeah, I didn't really know what I was doing for this. I was just smushing loads of pinks together, and then I thought I could figure it out when I get to it. I was using a lot of the techniques I figured out in the live stream I did. If you saw that, the last live stream I did, I was painting loads of bits of collage paper, and I was testing out a few different techniques which some of you guys had recommended, and some of them I really liked, especially like using a piece of glossy kind of paper that I have lying around. I think it's the back of a postage label, and using that and then using my nail to create textures and then peeling it off, and then it kind of just creates a cool texture underneath. If you want to see more of that like happening in real time, I recommend watching that live stream, because I make loads of textures in that live stream if you're interested in like how I do it real time. I ended up with loads of different textures to choose from. I'm more than enough green. I've barely touched my pile of green paper by the time I'd finished my crocodile, but it's nice to have options, because while they might not come in handy for this collage, I'm sure they'll come in handy in the future. So those were all my papers. Next, I moved on to actually making my crocodile. I was really nervous to do this. Whenever I have a piece in my mind for ages, the pressure kind of builds, and if you saw my Patreon posts leading up to it, you'll have heard me kind of complaining basically about how I was scared to start this piece because it's been in my mind for so long. I've got high expectations because the longer a piece has been in my head, like I came up with this idea months ago for this piece, and I've been drawing crocodiles for ages now, so it's like this crocodile has to live up to all those crocodiles which I've drawn in my sketchbook, which I really like. And when a piece has been in my head for a while, the clearer it kind of becomes. So when I make something and it doesn't look like what I have in my head, I get really disappointed and sad. It's mad how much art can affect my mood. My life is falling apart because I've drawn a bad crocodile. It's like, calm down. Actually, calm down. But then when I've made a good piece of art, it's like I'm on top of the world and I am unstoppable. Especially like if I make a bad piece of art, I need to just move on from it. It doesn't mean I'm a bad artist. It just means I've had a bad creative day, and that's fine because that happens to everyone, even the best artists in the world. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. This crocodile actually ended up being one of my favourite things I've ever made, and I think it's mainly because it's so outside of my comfort zone. The fact that it went really well was just a big sigh of relief of, oh, I can collage characters, because for so long I've collaged landscapes and only landscapes. Apart from the tiles that I've been making for Patreon, they've really pushed me outside of my comfort zone because I'm now collaging loads of different animals, which is really good to get me outside of my comfort zone. But I've never done like a full-on big illustration. I mean, I have collaged a few animals in the past. I'm pretty comfortable with birds. What else? It's mainly birds. Have I collaged any other animal? I can't say I have. I've done butterflies, but I don't know if they really count because they're just like filled with lovely patterns and stuff. And then I moved on to painting the girl. Originally I was going to collage this girl. I had all my textures ready to go, but the more I thought about it, the more I realised trying to collage this stuff would probably look quite stiff, number one, and number two, be very difficult to get like the perfect texture which I could cut out. So I decided, how about I kind of put my collage texture making brain on, but just apply that to an illustration as opposed to just an A4 sheet of paper which I splatter loads of paints on. So I was trying to stay in that loose painting frame of mind which I'm in when I'm painting my textures, but do that with a character. And I had so much fun doing this. There are days when you make art where just you're really frustrated and nothing's really working out, or it just feels, it feels like a chore. But then there are those days like this day where you're having so much fun and everything you make you're loving, and it's like, this is the reason I do art, is for days like this. Because I was having so much fun, and there was no pressure, because I decided I was just going to paint as many girls as it took, and they didn't take long. We're talking maybe like an hour per girl. The hair is what took the longest amount of time, honestly. The hair took ages building up the layers, but it was fun and pretty easy. It was just loads of circles, so it wasn't like it was really taxing stuff to do. And I just thought to myself, we're going to paint as many girls as it takes until I make something which I like, expecting me to paint like maybe 10 girls and the first 8 to be really rubbish quick ones. But even like my first girl, I mean, there are a few things about her which I don't like, but even the first girl that I painted ended up being pretty good. And it wasn't until like maybe half an hour into painting that girl that I started to realise it was going well, because I was thinking to myself, I'll try painting this girl, but you know, I might end up having to collage her. So the pressure was pretty low for this, and I think that's why it turned out so nice. When the pressure's low, I loosen up, and my favourite type of art is loose art. So when I end up making something which looks loose, I'm really proud of myself, because it takes so much for me to be loose, because for so long I've been so tight. And if you scroll back through my Instagram, you'll see that. Like, I used to do really, really detailed paintings, and if you go back before that, I used to do really detailed like portrait paintings. So trying to be loose is something which doesn't come naturally to me. So when I achieved that, it's like I am so happy with myself, because some artists can just do looseness so easily, and I love the way it looks. Right, so this is the stage I'm at now. I've finished the crocodile. I had to work very hard to get all these textures. At first I was a bit on the fence about these eyes, but the more I look at them, the more I really like them. I just think he looks really silly. I also really like this little claw. Yesterday I was working on the girl. Well, yesterday I finished off the crocodile, the face of the crocodile, and started on this girl. It's acrylic paint with a bit of pencil on top, and I used a lot of these crayons that I have. I wanted to really take the pressure off with this. Whenever I try to do a final thing that's loose, it never really stays loose, because I get it in my head that it's final and it has to be perfect. So I always tighten up. So I thought, let's work quick and then just do loads and loads and loads. Well, say loads, I've done 3, well, 2.5. But it kind of took the pressure off. So this was the first one. The pros about it are it's very loose. That's good. I really like the texture in the hair, but it's a little bit too messy, and her nose is too big. She's got like a Millhouse nose in this one, and not the biggest fan. And her eyes are too big. Her face is just a little bit weird, and the body is... There were some bits I like this foot I think is really cute, but the hand's not the best. It's like a little spatula, and things to be improved. I had another go at just the head, because that's just the space I had on this page. Trying to be still loose, but a little bit more precise with where I was placing my circles on the hair. And I think from this to this is quite a big improvement. I also much prefer the face on this one. The nose is more of a subtle swoop instead of a big bump. I mean, you might not be able to tell the difference, but I think this is a nicer shaped head, and I prefer her face. I think this eye might be a little bit too high up, but I can easily fix that on Photoshop. So this is my favourite face. So then I thought I'd have another go at the body. If I go forward a bit at this. Now I do really like this face as well, but I prefer the nose on the other one. So I don't know, I might try and edit the face from the other one onto this. I feel like this hair is too tight, this hair is too loose. I mean, this is stuff that only really I care about and no one will really notice. But then I thought, let's try and do a mix of the two. So then I feel like this hair is the perfect middle that is just a little bit more wild. We can tell the difference. I think there's a difference. Anybody? Just me. I also prefer her body, and look at that little hand, isn't that cute? And I prefer like how I did the hands and the feet, and I just took a little bit more time with adding extra colours into the body. So just imagine this girl sat on this crocodile. I think it'll work really well. I was a bit worried about combining collage with painting, but because I think it works because first off her shapes are very like, you know, simple and look like they could be like collage shapes, and also the textures are the same on both of them, so I think they look like they're part of the same world, even though this is collage and this is painted. Right, so I'm gonna take pictures of these, edit them on Photoshop to look exactly how I want them to look. Hello. I'm doing things a little bit differently here. I thought it'd be nice to talk through my editing decisions, and I thought I would pop my little face in the corner to make it a little bit more interesting, because I'm probably going to be talking for a while here, so let's get down to business. First thing on the list was to edit the art that I've been making. So you've seen all of this being made, and this, and now I need to get a digital version of that onto Photoshop. So first I tried just taking pictures. This is how I edit like 90% of my art, is I will just take a picture with my camera and I'll take multiple pictures and join them together and remove the background, tweak it a bit, and that's the job done. But I did it for this and I was just a bit disappointed with how it turned out, mainly because I had really bad lighting. The colours for this are just way off. The face is too light, this back bit is too light and also too dark. So then what I did is I used my scanner, and you can see like massive difference. The reason I didn't use my scanner straight away is because I always kind of forget about it, because it's really old, and a lot of the time I'm very disappointed with the results of the scanner, so I kind of just stopped using it, and because I much preferred the way it looked when I took pictures and edited the pictures. But very occasionally the scanner will just look better than the camera, which doesn't happen very often. I was very pleasantly surprised because, like I said, 90% of the time when it's finished scanning, I look at it and I think, goodness me, that's awful. I had to scan it in two halves and then join the halves together and remove the background. As you can see, the background is gone. I tried scanning the girl in, and as I suspected, the scan of the girl just looked awful because she's got much lighter colours. The scanner doesn't like light colours at all. So this girl is edited using pictures, which I obviously edited the pictures that I took. There little things have been done to the girl, like I ended up moving the positions of her legs and her arms, so I made them be, I show you here, they're like separate pieces, which I moved around and then joined together. The hair was such a big job because there's so many like flyaways I had to cut out if I get rid of the background. You can see like removing this background was such a big job. What I ended up doing, all of this which has been left is things which I added on digitally. So if I, where are they? So hair blend and hair blend. So this is the actual painted version which I did, and I was trying to find a way to transition the traditional part into the digital part. She's had extra like bits added to her, just little bits of lighting, like going in with the multiplier tool and drawing bits on with the pen, setting them to a low opacity just to add a bit more colour to her face. Just getting, like, the hair was too dark, so just adding that on to make the hair lighter. Oh, that's like even just the smallest of details, like adding a pink line. So that was a girl, and then this was the crocodile. Added on some extra bumps, highlights, a bit of shading. Oh, I gave him a foot because I thought it was just a bit weird how it was like cut off. More shading. This looks a bit weird, this kind of dark patch here, but it'll make sense in a second. All just like really small details which kind of add up to make a big difference. Oh, and I also gave him a back leg because I forgot to do that on the actual thing. So that's his back leg. And then pop the girl on top. You can see that's her shadow which I added. Next job was adding in the background. There it is. Now, right now this looks pretty good, but if I remove these guys, you can see the kind of chaos beneath. This was such a big job figuring out how to do this, and I made all of this using these textures which I scanned in. These are all the textures which I was painting earlier on in the video, so I just scanned in all the kind of pinkish, yellowish textures that I had painted, scanned them in so we can see like this bit here. If I turn that round, I took this section here, and that ended up being this bit here. You can kind of see that purple kind of swoop behind. All of these are separate pieces, like it's just utter chaos. If you look over here at all my layers, it's too many layers. Last time I did a big editing job, I said to myself, I'll never let myself get that many layers again, but somehow it just happens. So we've got the background, we've got the crocodile, we've got the girl. Oh, disco ball. This was quite a fun one to do. This was taking the base texture of this is this little bit of kind of cross hatching here. So I think the disco ball is probably like that little circle there. You can see, there you go, that's the base, which I had edited to be kind of a silvery green colour. And I do that by, if you go to image adjustments, hue and saturation, then I completely remove all the colour from it, and then you press colorize, and then you can make it any colour you want basically. So that's a pretty good handy thing to use. And then it's just adding on shading and squares to make it kind of look like a disco ball. One thing that I really loved about my the kind of colour mock that I did was the kind of transparency of these squares on top of the base texture. And if I was doing that in real life, I'd have to use like tracing paper probably, and it wouldn't look anywhere near as good. So it just made sense for this to be done digitally, because you can mess with opacity. So it's thinking about which bits will look better collaged traditionally and which bits will be easier to collage digitally and will look better that way. So I knew in my head this background, trying to do this background traditionally would have been really difficult, because it's all about kind of subtly blending colours together and blending squares on top of squares, and trying to do that in real life, I don't even know how I would have done that really. So at the moment it looks nice, but there's not a lot of atmosphere, everything looks quite flat, so it's time to add in lighting and finishing touches. And there you go. So it goes from looking quite plain and nothing really looks like it exists in that environment, to then adding in the lighting, adding in shadows and highlights where things would be hit by the kind of main light here. I mean, I don't go too mad with this because I do kind of like the flat look of it. I don't want to go too 3D with everything because, you know, it's collage paper. I still want it to look like collage paper, so I don't go in and perfectly shade everything to be perfectly hit by the light. So I just kind of do enough to make it work in the environment while still keeping that kind of flat 2D-ness of it. We've got splatters, which are always fun to add. Adding on the kind of squares from the disco ball reflecting around. Lots of shadows and highlights, making things darker and making things lighter, using either multiply on like a low opacity with a really big soft brush and just going around the edges with the brush, and adding on a few extra bits of light. I do really like, I might slightly tweak this actually, because I really like drag this out. I really love all these bumps on the crocodile's back. Like, this is one of my favourite parts of the crocodile, like this ripped edge of the paper, and you can't see it on the finished piece, but I was just playing around with it just before I started filming this, and I really like this as a composition where you can see the back, because obviously originally I have his back kind of cut off along the edge, but now I'm thinking, should I include that in? But obviously I'll have to tweak this edge a bit. I'll pop the finished thing up on screen. I probably will end up tweaking it a bit more between now and then because I just can't help myself, but I'm going to submit it tomorrow. Well, just send it to my agent tomorrow, and that's kind of like my own personal deadline in my head of when I need to stop playing around with this piece. It's like, I've sent it off, that's it, that's the finished thing, no more touching it, I'm done. So I'll send that off tomorrow, probably tonight actually. I might try and get it sent off so I can stop thinking about it. I know this is quite different for me and in what I usually do, but I do want to get into more children's illustration, because obviously I still want to make like cute landscapes. This wouldn't make a very good print in my shop, it's very niche, whereas, you know, pretty landscapes make very good prints in shops. So it's kind of finding the balance between trying to make work for my children's portfolio and trying to, you know, nuzzle my way into the children's book world. But then also making sure I'm still making the lovely landscapes, which I like to do for my shop, to make new prints. Right, I think I'm finished. That's all there needs to be said about this piece. I hope you've enjoyed watching and seeing this piece come to life. And thanks for being a Patreon, it really means a lot. It's pretty cool, guys. And I will see you soon. Don't know when, but I will. I'll be seeing you, whether you like it or not. Right, goodbye.